Everyone has to live somewhere, and everyone has to invest their money someplace. So what happens when where you live meets up with where your money is invested? Hello, real estate. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Big Money Real Estate. I'm Elise Glink. Here's today's daily update. So my good friend Jonathan Miller is back on the show with me today. He's president and CEO of Miller Samuel Real Estate Appraisers and Consultants. And I've known him for longer than I can even remember not knowing him. So that's a while. We last spoke in February, and at that time, he said that he didn't believe there was a national real estate market. We hear a lot of national numbers thrown around, but he doesn't see it as national. He sees it as a large assemblage of local real estate markets. And those markets vary wildly in valuations and pricing trend lines. So one of the places that happens to be the most insane at the moment is in Jonathan's back door. And so I invited him back to touch on some of these astronomically priced neighborhoods in New York City, of all places. And then I thought we'd talk about affordability issues facing homeowners and buyers, which is another issue that I know is near and dear to your heart, Jonathan. So welcome back to Big Money Real Estate.
Great to be with you, Elise.
So I looked at your numbers in your Friday newsletter, which, by the way, everybody who's watching this should sign up for Jonathan's Friday newsletter. It is packed with really interesting information. So kudos to you for doing that every week.
Thank you.
Brooklyn, median rental price, home sale prices in Manhattan, in Brooklyn. What is going on? Everything seems to just be hitting a new record high. It's a little bit like Picassos that sell at auction.
Well, it's really been quite a show the last few years, both in the New York City market and then also some other high-priced housing markets around the country. You're seeing this phenomenon where rents are rising rapidly and sale prices are rising rapidly. So hence the affordability crisis that we're talking about nationwide. In Brooklyn, for example, the median rent hit an all-time record. And it's been flirting with a record for most of the last 2 years. It just keeps either breaking through or just missing. And that's a real challenge to affordability. One of the big stories in New York is that we're seeing record employment growth. And we're also seeing the proliferation of tight credit conditions, which are making it harder for first-time buyers to enter the purchase market. So they're tipped back to renting, and rents. They create a logjam and rents rise, and that's what we're seeing.
So we see that there are foreign lenders, or you've been seeing that foreign lenders are underwriting all 7 of the largest luxury condo developments in construction right now in Manhattan, which is insane. We're seeing billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of condos in maybe a dozen buildings sell. Most of them are selling to people who are foreigners, and most of those people will spend maybe a week or 2 in those condos, which will be fully furnished. This is not it's driving all the other prices, or it seems to be driving them all up. But I just read in the New York Times last week that if you want to find a good deal, go look in the mid-50s in the Upper East or Upper West Side.
Right. I think in fairness to a high-priced housing market like New York, in many ways, I characterize this super luxury phenomenon. We just had a sale that closed 2 days before Christmas and became public knowledge a few months ago. They set the record in one of these new buildings of $100.5 million.
Wow.
And chances are, and that broke the old record of a few years ago of $88 million, but there's been a slew of new projects announced that are under construction or that are conversions of office buildings where you're seeing penthouse pricing somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from $115 million to $175 million.
I don't even know what to say about that. That's like crazy numbers, right?
Well, not only that, but it isn't their primary residence. So right. This is a global phenomenon. And while in New York, in certain locations, like in the central business district, Midtown, where all the big office towers are, that's where a lot of this is happening. That's heavily, or the majority, international consumers. The balance of and we're seeing, lots of product in downtown Manhattan and other markets that is heavy on New Yorkers or U.S. citizens that are very wealthy. What I like to say is we're building the world's most expensive bank safety deposit boxes In other words, you put your valuables in this box and you rarely visit. And that's the phenomenon that's happening on a global basis. Other markets that I covered, like Miami, Los Angeles, Aspen, Colorado, we're seeing the same phenomenon, as well as London, Hong Kong, et cetera, around the world. And there's a lot of forces driving it. And I don't see those forces changing over the next decade or so.
It's hard to even imagine. I mean, when I think about the Tiffany markets, right? I call them the Tiffany markets. It's,
right.
You know, these incredible markets of Hong Kong or Paris, London, Vancouver, right?
Vancouver,
for sure, right? It's been crazy. I was in Vancouver, I don't know, 18 months ago, and it looked nothing like the Vancouver of 25 years ago, the last time I had been there. And we're wandering the waterfront, and every single building is new and gleaming and beautiful, and there's, cranes everywhere. And I looked at Sam and I just went, this is so unlike the U.S. And he said, yeah, I mean, where you haven't seen that kind of building since, I want to say, Chicago in 1990 is the last time you really saw 25 cranes in the air. And the only reason I know that is because I wrote a cover story about it for Chicago Magazine.
Right.
Where is all the building coming from? And now I feel like it's really being driven by these ultra wealthy people who are looking to just plunk cash down into something. They pay cash. There are no mortgages for a $100 million apartment that I know of.
Right.
So they pay cash and it just sits there, and they pay their monthly assessments. They have it beautifully furnished. And like you said, they don't use it. It's still in pristine condition when they go to sell. And then the next multi-gazillionaire goes in and rips out everything they've done and redoes it in their own taste.
Right. Well, actually, I think a lot of the purchases that are being made, it isn't about, flipping. It isn't about a return on investment even. It really is about capital preservation. If you think about the global credit environment or economic environment, you have Europe on a sort of slippery slope with the euro, with the recession. You have China with the housing bubble and this massive extraction of wealth to diversify. You have South America, where you have countries like Brazil that had overheated economies that are starting to level off or cool off. It's very expensive for investors. The U.S., with all the insanity of sort of Washington and politics, we seem to be this global safe haven, and also this attraction towards hard assets like real estate seems to benefit. One of the challenges of new construction, or looking at the housing market, is that we tend now not to be building sort of middle income type housing. We tend to be building, it's skewed, whether it's single family construction, Toll Brothers, or whether it's urban markets. We're skewed towards very high end of the market, and that makes it more expensive for everybody else. Not necessarily because we're selling $100 million units, but because inventory remains low throughout the U.S. for sort of middle class type housing stock.
It's a great insight, and I really appreciate it. It's hard to believe that we have become a world where we're really focused on the top, say, 7 million families of the world who have a net worth in greater of $1 billion, right? It's just hard to believe that that's where the world has now come to. It's 1,000th of 1% of the 7 billion people on this planet. It's just a completely crazy and, I think, unsustainable way for us to go forward with investment. But Jonathan, I know you and I have a very like mind on this, and I'm sure we'll talk about this again soon.
Oh, anytime.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Jonathan Miller is president and CEO of Miller Samuel. He is one of the great appraisers, and every Friday he talks about all the stuff that he sees going on with lots of charts for all you wonky investors out there. So you can go to millersamuel.com. We will also put out the link for you and sign up. I encourage you to do it. I always learn a lot. And thanks for watching this episode of Big Money Real Estate. As always, you can send me real estate investing questions on Twitter and Facebook, and please share this video with everybody you know on social media. Also, don't forget to check out my brand new series, The Intentional Investor, How to Be Wildly Successful in Real Estate. You can find that here at the Wit Nation store or at thinklinkstore.com. See you next time. I'm Elise Glink.